get rid of that. What a game that was. Celtic win on penalties. Absolutely fantastic from Celtic tonight. That was the starting team. Sinisalo saves a penalty. Sinisalo playing like a young Arthur Borage, it has to be said, when it comes to the penalties. Sinisalo, for me, was the man of the match. It was a cross between Sinisalo and Austin Trusty for me. Tell me your man of the match in the comment section, because I think it's a close one. It's a close one between... It is a close one between the keeper and Austin Trusty. For what Austin Trusty did in that game tonight was unbelievable. Austin Trusty was just... He was fighting for everything. Fought for absolutely everything. Baz away at the vineyard to get the glass topped up. Well, this is true. Sinisalo, the holy goalie. James Forrest. James Forrest, man of the match. Yes, you could say James Forrest was man of the match, but most improved player. When you look back at last season and you look at the player that tonight was the most improved, that was Austin Trusty. Austin Trusty, CCV played well. Cameron Carter-Vickers played well, but for a player that was up for the fight, wanted to win everything. You know, it just there's something has triggered Austin Trusty to go, there's no way am I getting benched this season. No way. And I think Brendan Rodgers had a few questions answered tonight by players. Do they have the mentality? Do they have the ability? Do they have the desire to be first team players? To knock people out of position? To players that are more experienced players? Inamura lasted the whole game, which was weird. He played well, but Austin Trusty was telling him to get out to the wing a lot. He was coming in far too much for Austin Trusty's liking. But Sinisalo, for those penalties, we need to talk about that first, because that was like watching Arthur Borage. I've never seen anybody jump about the line like that for penalties since we had the holy goalie. And I think if Sinisalo, for me personally, is growing into the number one keeper for Celtic. He will be the number one keeper for years. It will take an unbelievable offer to take Sinisalo away from Celtic. That's how much I rate him as a player. Potentially we have one of the best goalkeepers that we've had in the history of Celtic currently on the books, and he's only a young kid. Shin Yamada came on the second half. He looked fantastic. Johnny Kenny did what Johnny Kenny can do. He's a good player. But the second half, something clicked in the second half. Shin Yamada was further out on the wing. There was nobody really. Paulo Bernardo. We need to talk about Paulo. Paulo Bernardo is a player that can run a midfield. I think putting Paulo Bernardo in the holding midfield role with Callum McGregor going forward would be a masterstroke by Brendan Rodgers. But Brendan Rodgers does like that one holding midfield player. Thank you, John McIntosh. Brendan Rodgers does like that one holding midfield player, and he likes everyone else to kind of go forward. We were playing with two up front at points tonight. Flip side, Tilioff needs to go. Yes. Christie, I would agree with that. I never seen anything that said to me that Marco Tilio was going to be a fantastic Celtic player. And it's a shame for the boy. You know, I feel for him, but there was nothing tonight that said to me that Marco Tilio is going to be an outstanding player. And he's not. He's just not got it. The midfield is complicated. The midfield is complicated because we need to bring someone else in that has a bit of oomph. But Paulo Bernardo, give Brendan Rodgers an option tonight. Paulo Bernardo was getting a lot of heavy tackles in the game. Do you know, they were man marking him and they seen him as, if you stop him playing, they must have thought his name was McGregor, because the way that he was playing, he was absolutely, he would get the ball when he would make space for himself, and he would make things happen. Cameron Carter-Vickers had a good game. Austin Trusty was immense. I'm sorry, but Liam Scales has to be worried for his place. You've got to say, second half, taking Cameron Carter-Vickers off, bringing on Stephen Welsh, had everyone thinking, oh my God, what are we doing? Stephen Welsh is a capable player, and you can understand why Brendan Rodgers likes him so much. You've got to remember, it was only a year ago or so that Brendan Rodgers gave him a new 5-year contract, because he thinks that Stephen Welsh is a fantastic player. There is a player there in Stephen Welsh, and it's, can he up his game? Can Stephen Welsh do... It's expected that Stephen Welsh will go out either on loan or be sold this window, but Brendan Rodgers is kind of hoping that Stephen Welsh will give him that Liam Scales moment. But I think this season that moment is going to Austin Trusty in defence. I think Austin Trusty's given Brendan Rodgers that, right, you're the one that's got the desire, you're the one that's got the fight. And young Donovan, oh my days, oh my God, what a player young Donovan is. Young Donovan, I tell you one thing, when Luke McCowan was in the wars, Donovan was the one racing up and right in the player's face to then have two of their players coming up and getting in Donovan's face. And Donovan is the type of guy that if you're going into a scrap, you want to know that somebody's going to be there to back you up. And I tell you one thing, Luke McCowan went in hard, but Donovan, he was there backing up and saying, do you know what, if you're going to try and go for my player, I'm going to come for you. And that's what you want. And I tell you one thing, we're actually in a little bit of a better position than maybe what we thought we were as fans after that game tonight. Tonight wasn't about the scoreline, although we did win on penalties. It was all about the performance. And I think there's a lot of fans pleasantly surprised by the performance tonight. Players like Inamura getting 90 minutes. You know, Kieran Tierney not even getting on the pitch. Dyson Maeda not getting on the pitch. Rio Hatate not getting on the pitch. Big names for Celtic not getting on the pitch. Ben Summers coming on. Ben Summers, to tell you one thing, he's a decent player. He needs to be kept at Celtic. Absolutely. Yamada was onside for that goal. It looked as if he was offside. It did look as if he was about a yard offside on the channel I was watching off. The youth look good all of a sudden. I think it's the ones that's left standing fishing Scotland. I think that we've got rid of the players that weren't going to make it. You're now talking about Donovan. You're talking about Ben Summers. And you're talking about Dane Murray. Do you know, it's there's 3 left out of the 8 or 9 that started pre-season. And that's not bad. That's not bad. You've got to give Brendan Rodgers that. Dane Murray was always going to be in and about there. He never even got any game time tonight. Brendan Rodgers knows what he can get for Dane Murray. It was a massive game for Donovan. He showed fight, desire, physicality, technical ability, mentality, all the things that Brendan Rodgers talks about, and he got pass marks. The same for Ben Summers. Do you know, attitude, mental attitude, physicality, all these things that Brendan Rodgers talks about, he gets it. Shin Yamada, he looks as if he's got a bit of place and a bit of trickery, and I can't wait to play him. He was offside, unfortunately. Should have timed his run to stay onside. Jamesy Boy, first half with a new team. And you're going to give him that. Do you know, you're going to give him that. Let's get him up to pace with the rest of the squad. What do we still need? Let's not kid ourselves. What we still need at Celtic at the current moment is another defender that's capable of taking Cameron Carter-Vickers' place on a permanent basis. Is Stephen Welsh that person? I'm not too sure. Maybe he is. Maybe he's given Brendan Rodgers something to think about. Do you know, I'm not sure. Maybe Brendan Rodgers isn't going to get the big Frenchman that we were talking about for defence. But either way, it gives us a bit more confidence tonight. It does give us a bit more confidence. I have no idea what the Sev's... I have no idea either. Don't know. Early days, but Shin looks a good player. Fast, strong, can finish. my man of the match near the end, but Inamura looking the part. Inamura was looking the part. Coming inside like Greg Taylor, far too much for me. That's obviously Brendan Rodgers that's trying to get him to play that position. Austin Trusty shouting at him to get further out. I think Austin Trusty, there was at times he was too close to him when he was in midfield, and Austin Trusty's wanting a quick ball out to the wing, which you'll get when Kieran Tierney plays. Welsh had plenty of opportunities, time to move him on and bring in top quality in, says Graham. Is it though? Because Graham, you have to understand that what Welsh gives you is not just a player that Brendan Rodgers sees him in training, and Brendan Rodgers knows what he can bring. He was very composed that second half. You and Boy Martin, I'll get to you in a minute. He was very composed that second half. Sometimes it takes a player. Welsh has never went out on loan, if I'm correct. I don't think Welsh. I think last season was the first time that Welsh went out on loan. Sometimes it takes a player, like it took Callum McGregor, to go out on loan from Celtic, play well in a foreign country, and then come back. And maybe Brendan's went, let's see how you go in pre-season. He was unfortunate to get that injury earlier on his shoulder. Celtic thought he may need an operation. He played the second half today. He was more than capable. He was well more than capable. But it will come down to whether Stephen Welsh now wants to sit on the sidelines for big parts of the season, or if he wants to go out on loan again, or if he's sold. And I think that will be the discussions that Brendan Rodgers and Stephen Welsh will have. It's expected that Stephen Welsh will leave Celtic again, whether it be on loan or he's sold. I think that it would be Brendan Rodgers' preference if he was loaned out for another half season to season. Welsh has had so many stakes in him, sort of like Boyata. Yeah. Back up to you and Boy Martin. Give us a starting 11 for next week. God, that's a hard one. Okay. Osmond played on the wing. It looks like he's going to be a winger more than anything, giving Brendan Rodgers a lot to think about. This would be, if my starting 11 for next week would be Sinisalo, Johnston, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Trusty and Kieran Tierney. In the midfield, it would be Paulo Bernardo, it would be Callum McGregor and Luke McCowan. Yes, I would drop Arnie Engels. That would be my midfield three starting next week. Luke McCowan, Paulo Bernardo and Kalmack. The front three will be Dyson Maeda, James Forrest and Sinisalo. Shin Yamada. I think that would be my starting 11 for next week. I think that's the strongest team. Osmond looks a cracking winger. Summers, fantastic player. Hatate, where do you fit Hatate into that game? Brendan Rodgers is now in a position where, the midfield is looking okay, but we still need someone better. And I think if we're going to bring in anyone else in midfield, it means that we'll lose a midfield player. But Brendan Rodgers does still want to bring in at least another forward and two wingers. We do need wingers. Marco Tilio will leave Celtic. I think he's proven that he's a decent player, but ultimately Marco Tilio is not a player that's going to set the heather on fire when it comes to the Champions League. He's just not got it, I'm afraid. And I think that would be my starting 11. But you never know. Brendan Rodgers might change it. The only change I would make from your team is Hatate for McCowan. I can understand why people think that, but there was a few seasons back Hatate got dropped for David Turnbull the first game of the season, because David Turnbull was playing, he was on fire. David Turnbull was on fire at the start of the season. Luke McCowan's in that position now. And that's why I would maybe think of playing Luke McCowan. And I think it's something similar to what happened a few years back when David Turnbull got the first 4 games of the season before Rio Hatate. Sell Engels. I don't think they'll sell Engels. SPL 352. Yeah, I could see that happening. It's between Hatate and Engels for the midfield. Yeah. Baz, if the players played tonight, could have been injured. I think the majority of the players that are going to start next week got game time tonight. I think that it was an interesting one that the manager, he knows what he can get from Kieran Tierney, but I think he gave Inamura the game time tonight purely on, let's see how this guy handles with a top team. Do you know, this is going to be Champions League class team again, and big physical players. Let's see how he copes with this. And I've got to say, for 250 grand, you can't knock Inamura. You cannot knock him for that price. You cannot say, he's got his limitations, and he's learning. He's learning the system. He's learning the way that we want him to play. But I tell you one thing, he's a fantastic squad player. Fantastic squad player. Bernardo was brilliant tonight. Chilpelt, he was absolutely fantastic. Bernardo won't start next week, says more on the tick. Mick, interesting. Luke McCownich, wee goal threat. Just don't like him in our midfield. Why not? I think Luke McCown is a fantastic player. If you could class Luke McCown as a previous Celtic player, I would say that he's better than Peter Grant, but not as good as Tommy Burns. He's in between. That's how I would explain Luke McCown to someone. He's a bit better than Peter Grant, but not as good as Tommy Burns. Or maybe a John Collins. Yeah, I'd say that's a better comparison. He's in between a John Collins and a Peter Grant. That's just my thinking. He gets robbed off the ball too much, but he's definitely a goal threat. Yeah, but I think can he improve as a player? I think he can. Do you know, it was his first season at Celtic. He himself said that he didn't think he would get as much game time as what he got last season. I think he was over the moon with the game time he got. He knew that he would have to play better and listen, Luke McCown's a player that said at the start of pre-season, the first game of pre-season, Luke McCown stood in front of the camera and said, there's 10 things I need to improve on this pre-season. And I think he's improved on about 8 of them. Maybe 6 or 7, 8 of them. I think he's improved this pre-season. Tommy Burns, Peter Grant are 2 different types of player to compare against. Yeah, but I'm saying he's in between them. Anyway, Baz, you're better than Peter Grant. Good, Chris Fraser. How are you doing from the good old US of A, if I remember right? Who starts on the right next week? No idea. But anyway, it was a fantastic game. Celtic finished the game 1-1. It went to penalties. Sinisalo was, for me, man of the match when it came to the penalties. Stephen Welsh scored a goal for Celtic. Shin Yamada scored a weird goal for Celtic. And Osman scored. And there was a few other players scored. It was absolutely brilliant. Anyway, I am done and dusted. It has been an unbelievable night tonight. Over 18,000 on the watch along. Over 4,500 on the preview. And then over 1,500 on this video. Not bad for a night. It's the countdown to Sunday. It's the countdown to the first game of the season. Pre-season is over. That's it. We've done it. We've managed to get through pre-season 2025, 2026. It's down to business. We can forget about pre-season. It's done and dusted. Has it been a good pre-season? I think we can get to the end of it and say yes. It's been a better game tonight than what we thought it was going to be. I think that it was always going to be about performance tonight. A lot of people said in the chat beforehand that, you know, the result doesn't matter tonight. If we get a hiding but it's a good performance, it doesn't matter. But it was a good performance and it was a great result. To finish 1-1 against that big, strong, physical team. it does show that when Celtic do go into the Champions League, we do need big physicality type players like what we were playing against tonight. I think that would give Celtic something give them a little bit of an edge. But we can only hope that Brendan Rodgers does get the players in that has that bit of a physicality and that does give us that little bit of an edge. Thank you to every single one who has joined us on the live tonight. It's been absolutely fantastic. But that's it. We'll be live tomorrow morning, 10 and 9 o'clock Celtic Park time, where we can talk about potential incomings and our thoughts for the season ahead. On that note, have an absolutely fantastic evening, Celtic fans, wherever you are, all around the world.